today we're going to be looking over ORDOVIS'S Greatsword, which not only is an extremely powerful weapon, but it also does a tremendous amount of poise damage which can break even the hardest of bosses, making the game an absolute breeze. So let's delve into this insanely powerful build. Now of course, first of all, in order to obtain this weapon, all you need to do is actually defeat ORDOVIS themselves, and they are residing in the Oriza Hero's Grave just outside of Leyndell Capital. And not only will you get this insane weapon, but you will also get a set of Crucible armor if you want to wear the armor to match. Either way, obviously our main focus today is ORDOVIS'S Greatsword, as like I mentioned in the introduction, this thing is a stance breaking machine, and that's mainly down to its unique skill power, ORDOVIS'S Vortex. Essentially, what that does is it winds up the sword, creating a vortex of holy damage to then slam down into the ground, initially doing a load of damage before then doing 3 pulsating attacks afterwards, again dealing extra damage and a huge amount of poise damage. Now just for reference, the gameplay that you're seeing in the background is from New Game Plus 5, but even still I was breaking the majority of bosses' stances in just 2 uses of the Ash of War, and with each use I was dealing around about 4,000 damage. Of course, if you're going to be using this weapon in your first playthrough or your first couple of New Game Pluses, you are going to have a lot more success rate with breaking your enemies' poises, as they will have a lot less defense, and you will also be doing a lot more damage. Using this build in your earlier playthroughs will mean that you will most likely defeat enemies with just 2 uses of this Ash of War, because if you don't break their stance then leading up for a critical hit, you would have decimated the majority of their health bars just simply with the amount of damage that you do with this attack. And this build is very easy to make in your first or second playthrough because it is a level 150 character, and here are the stats to obviously make that happen. So as you can see, we've got 50 points into vigor, 20 points in mind, 24 points in endurance, 69 points in strength, 13 points in dexterity, as that is the minimum that is required to wield the weapon, before then having 10 in intelligence, 33 points in faith, and 10 in arcane as well. Now those 10 points in both intelligence and arcane are my base stats, so I didn't put any extra stats into either of those, and my starting class is the Wretch class. So when you start as level 1 and have 10s across the board, that is what I started with, which is why obviously the base stat for intelligence and arcane is 10. But as you can tell from the stats, the main focus points in terms of our damage output is indeed strength and of course faith as well. So if you wanted to start with a different character that had maybe slightly higher strength or slightly higher faith, feel free to do so. It's just intelligence and arcane are not mandatory at all for this kind of build. But although the Vortex Ash of War of course is a holy attacking move like I mentioned earlier, it actually benefits more from strength, which is why we delve a lot more into strength. And with our 33 faith, that also allows us to use the buffs Golden Vow and the Howl of Shabiri, which again, if you wanted to play a bit safer, because the Howl of Shabiri does increase your damage intake by 30%, you can potentially drop down the faith to 25 and then run Flame Grant Me Strength instead, and then pump the extra points into the strength stat and focus purely on physical damage. But I found that I dealt a little bit more damage this way around, which is why I'm taking the risk of using Howl of Shabiri, and I guess it adds a little bit of a challenge, because if you get hit, you're going to get hit like an absolute truck. But something that isn't quite as challenging is introducing you all to today's video sponsor, and that of course is MMOEXP. MMOEXP is the quickest and cheapest place to purchase in-game items and in-game currencies. Elden Ring is one of their specialty games, so if you're looking to get yourself some runes or maybe some rare items like the weapon we're discussing today, feel free to use their service. And if you do happen to purchase anything where we're partnered together, you can use my unique code JAZZA to get yourself a nice little 5% discount. They do cover other games as well, so if you want to have a browse around and see what they have to offer, there will be a link in the description down below. And like I say, if you purchase anything, use the code JAZZA, JAZZA, to get 5% off your purchases. But of course for now, let's get back to the build and finish it off by going through the talismans. So yes, to complete this crazy build, of course we're using some extremely powerful talismans, and where we're focusing most of our damage through the skill power, the first of which is going to be the Shard of Alexander. That of course greatly boosts the attack damage that we do with the skill power, and that again can be boosted even further by using Godfrey's icon as well, where the skill power is chargeable, we can obviously make use of this particular talisman to once again boost the attack damage with that particular move. And where it is holy based damage, we can also run the Sacred Scorpion Charm to again give us an additional 12% boost to the damage output with that attack, before then finishing off the build with the Ritual Swords talisman. Now this particular talisman is something that you can interchange. As you can probably tell from this build so far, we're running a lot of risks. Obviously we've got the Scorpion Charm as well as the Halashibiri, which means we're going to be taking an additional 40% extra damage, which obviously isn't very good. So if you wanted to take out either the Scorpion Charm or the Ritual Talisman and swap it in for something like the Dragon Crest Shield, feel free to do so, as that will make this build a hell of a lot safer. But if you want the absolute best damage output, then running the Ritual Swords Talisman is something that's necessary, as that again boosts our damage output with everything by 10% when we're at full health. But if that wasn't enough, just to top it all off and give an additional boost to our damage output, in our Wonder Physic we can also run the Holy Shrouding Cracked Tear to again boost our damage output with the skill power. And then I also highly suggest running the Stone Barb Cracked Tear, especially if you're in the later New Game Pluses, as this will help negate the additional poise damage you need to deal in order to break your enemy stances. But again, if you just want more pure damage output, you can change the Stone Barb Cracked Tear to something like the Spiked Cracked Tear or even the Strength Knot Tear, just to again boost your strength and deal even more damage. So of course, as you can see, when you mix everything together, we're heavily focused on the skill power of this weapon and just the pure damage output that we can do with it. But the actual weapon itself is still very good, as it's just a general greatsword, so even the charged heavies will still be doing a tremendous amount of poise damage. And if you do eventually get two of these weapons, you can of course power stance them, but in all honesty you only need the one, as it's just an absolute monster. In fact, I forgot to mention this, but also against certain enemies you can stun lock them. So essentially anybody that's of the same stature as you, so people like Melania or any invaders like Vike, anybody like that can be stun locked and get trapped in the animation of doing the skill power. So not only is it going to be hard for them to interrupt you, but they will almost get stuck in this every single time, meaning that you're almost guaranteed to hit off the full wave of the Ash of War, dealing the maximum amount of damage. And I also just wanted to quickly note, you can use other incantations with this build as well. Where we've got 33 points into Faith, we do have a nice catalogue of incantations available to us, whether that be lightning incantations, the Crucible Knight incantations, or even some of the flame incantations. Whatever you want to implement into this build, you can do. Just bear in mind, you've only got 33 points into Faith, so the damage output with those incantations probably isn't going to be the best. But if you wanted to add a little bit of range with something like the Lightning Spear, you can of course add that into this build as well. And of course, if you want to mimic the style that you're seeing me represent on screen, for our armor set we're using a mix of the Great Helm, Gilmere Knight armor, along with Scaled Greaves and Gauntlets, as that gives me 60 poise of my own, which is obviously brilliant when trying to charge up the skill power, but also makes you look like an incredibly cool knight, fitting for this incredibly powerful strength build that we've created. So yeah, that is everything that you need to know to create the ultimate ORDOVIS'S Greatsword build and absolutely obliterate every enemy in the entire game. Of course, I just wanted to say a huge thank you to everybody that's been watching this video, because we've had a tremendous amount of support on the channel recently and you all seem to be loving these ultimate build videos. So I just, wanted to say a big thank you for all of the support recently. And if you found this particular build interesting or fun and want to see more videos like this in the future, by all means hit that like button down below, as that will be the quickest and easiest way to let me know that you enjoy this content and you want to see more of it. And if you're new around here and want to stick around for more overpowered builds like this, feel free to hit that subscribe button. It's free to do, you can change your mind at any time, and if you do subscribe you'll be joining the existing legends that are already part of this amazing community. But for now, like I say, that's everything. Go and have fun with this build and let me know in the comments how you get on, because I really do genuinely love it when I see your comments saying you've tried these builds, you loved it and you want to see more. So yeah, give it a go and let me know how you get on. But for now, I've said everything that I need to say, so thank you so much for watching, and I guess I'll catch you in the next video of whatever it is that we make. Bye bye.